Hey again, guys. Well, as I mentioned in the last catch-up, this quickie is made up entirely of paid requests, so you can thank these people for allowing these albums to finally get the proper attention they deserve, or in one or two cases, the abject scorn they deserve. I mean, let this be a warning to those of you that would want to give to request an album. Your donation only guarantees an honest review. I'm happy for the support, but I don't care how much you give. If I think your album is shit, I won't be shy about it. Actually, while we're at it, I should go over the ground rules for requesting albums. 1, it has to be something released this year. 2, it can't be an album that I've already reviewed. Actually, since I'm at it, we should probably add a few more caveats to this list. 3, unfortunately, I won't review your band. This is a question I get a lot, and look, guys, I know, it's tough out there. I get it, believe me. But A, the big hitters keep me busy enough as it is, and B, there's an obvious conflict of interest in paying for a review of your own group. Lastly, number 4, your pledge only gets you one album review, people. If you pledge, then I can't take another album request from you for now, let's say 3 months. I don't know about that timeline. I might, make it longer or shorter, as it depends. Look, I've got to do this just so I don't get overwhelmed with viewer requests. Okay, we good? All right, we got all the boring shit out of the way? Good. On with the reviews! Special thanks to Carson Wade for the request here, not to mention the dozens of other people who requested this one. But you know, I don't blame you guys at all for wanting to hear from me on this, because apparently I'm the only person on the planet that kind of digs the new incarnations of the Pixies. Yeah, I don't know what the hell's up. I was pretty kind to Indie Cindy, and my mind hasn't changed on that one. Is it as good as Bossa Nova or Doolittle? Well, no, but it's got its own feel to it, and it stands up just fine on its own. I honestly don't see why people were so savage to that album. And apparently critics aren't being too much nicer to this one either, which, again, weirds me out because I ended up really enjoying this one too. Truth be told, I'm digging this more laid-back, relaxed Pixies sound. Songs like the title track, Might As Well Be Gone, and Talent have a bit of a humbler, less caustic approach, but they're still constructed and delivered like good old classic Pixie songs, and it's not like the band is completely mellowed out on us. I mean, tracks like Bale Is Back and Chakalaga have Frack Blanks shrieking at us all Debaser style, and he's still got the kick in his voice to make the experience nice and jumpy. Well, while I do have to admit Indie Cindy did get maybe a little too mellow in places, this album does a bit more to keep you on your toes. But really, it's the quieter moments that tend to shine through brightest on this album, particularly Paz Lanchantine's lead song, All I Think About Now. While this track, well, let's just be real, sounds way too similar to Where's My Mind, it's still a haunting and beautiful song on which Paz sings and plays absolutely splendidly. I mean, I've always been a big Paz fan ever since the A Perfect Circle days, and it's nice to see her getting more time up front. Please, let this happen more on the next Pixies album, guys. I am totally for this. Really, overall, I dig the new Pixies album. Sorry, legit critics, but I'm having fun with it. Is it the explosive masterpiece that their older works are? No, and some of you, especially those of you that just hated Indie Cindy or consider a Kim Deal-less Pixies to be the highest treason, probably still won't be necessarily converted by this. I mean, compared to some of the other artists that have tried to do the whole coming out of retirement thing, we've seen far, far worse than this. Head Carrier gets 4 heads in a duffel bag out of 5. The next 2 requests actually come from Aqualoth2160. Why am I going against the very damn guidelines I just laid out and giving him 2 requests? Well, for one, this is kind of my way of saying sorry to some of you for taking so long to get to this. Some of you were kind enough to give me a choice between albums when you requested, and for those of you that did, I'm just going to be super nice and give you both of your requests for the trouble. Sorry, I suck at deadlines. Also, I gotta give props to Aqualoth. He's always been super supportive of the show in the comments, on Twitter. He was one of the first subscribers to Game & Crash, so yeah, dude, I appreciate it. I don't mind throwing an extra one your way. Even though, I hate to say it, I ended up having some major issues with both your requests. Let's start with Vektor, a kind of thrash prog, sci-fi, almost blackened-ish metal kind of thing. You know, when I researched this band, that certainly perked my ears up. I'm into all of those things, and I completely understand why you'd want to toss this my way. And sure enough, it lives up to pretty much all those descriptors, too. The guitars and drums are viciously fast and chaotic. The shredding and lick work shown off on this thing are absolutely outstanding. Blistering is the first word that came to mind when listening to these riffs, and yeah, I'll bet you could carve a Thanksgiving turkey with the tips of these guys' fingers. It's solid work. And the drum work is absolutely spellbinding. Blake Anderson is a name to be paying attention to if you're an up-and-coming metal drummer. Some of the stuff this guy was laying down is straight up maniacal. And he does an exquisite job keeping the beat explosive, tight, and absolutely crushing, despite the album's somewhat underpolished feel. This is one of those metal albums that could have used a bit more production, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Overall, the band is absolutely exquisite. They've been gaining a lot of positive buzz in the metal circuit lately, and yeah, for the most part, I'd say they deserve it. But holy shit, do I have some issues with this group. Wow, there was something in the way here. Something big, bold, and unavoidable, like a turd in a punch bowl, a finger in your salad, or a xenophobic batshit nutty lyric in your Megadeth album. The vocals. Jesus Christ in a trebuchet. David DeSanto goes for the whole super high-pitched pig squeal approach, and oh my god, it makes my fucking ears bleed! Jesus God, no! I'll eat my meat, I'll eat my pudding, I'll eat whatever the fuck you want me to, just make it stop! Oh my god! Guys, I make no hyperbole of this when I say that this album physically hurt me to listen to. Listening to one song on its own left a horrible ringing in my ears and made my temples throb. Sitting through the entire 73-minute album literally triggered my migraines every time I tried to listen to it. And it wasn't any other aspect of the album. Everything else is great. Hell, the one or two songs near the end where DeSanto chills the fuck out and does some actual singing, he's quite good. But his squeal, oh God almighty! And it's not even like I'm against pig squeals necessarily. They can be done right. And the thing is, I think some people will probably adore this aspect. But to me, I don't know what it is, but I think I found my kryptonite. His voice pushes something I like to call the fuck you button. You know how certain people tend to hate sounds like this, or this, or this? Well, to me at least, DeSanto's voice is like all of those things rolled up into one, and I physically couldn't stand it. I don't know if any band has done that to me before. Holy shit. Ugh, and I feel crappy saying that too, because I have to be in the minority here. As much buzz as this band is getting, no, it's gotta be just my eardrums that are exploding. I feel like most of you will probably be able to see past the unique vocals and enjoy this album for all its strengths, because where it's strong, it is actually a powerhouse. But huge warning, especially if you're a migraine sufferer, and especially if one of your triggers is high-pitched noise, avoid this album like the goddamn plague. I mean, again, not because it's bad, just, you know, for your health. Terminal Redux gets 3.5 out of 5. Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry to do, look guys, how about we talk about something I was a little warmer towards, okay? Let's Claypool. He's a guy people have been begging me to talk about forever now, and you know, I get it. I used to play a ton of bass guitar growing up, and when you're around my age, Les Claypool is one of your gods. Because the things that dude has done with the low end are downright revolutionary, if not a touch bizarre? But for as strange as some of Claypool's work is, he's always been crazily proficient behind his instrument, and you know, from what I've heard, he's a fairly nice dude. He seems like he'd be a bit more approachable and friendly than, say, your Captain Beefhearts or your Frank Zappas. The dude has a charm to him, and hearing that he was teaming up with Sean Lennon made my ears perk up too. Though personally I'm more of a Julian guy, but whatever. It seems like it'd make a good pairing, and sure enough, it pretty much is. Claypool's trademark, punishing, thumpy, and complicated bass riffage is coated all over this thing. In fact, in most songs, his work takes the forefront of the melody, and it makes for an extremely pleasant listen, especially if you know anything about the bass. It'll probably have a lot of you four-stringers out there going, "Oh, how is he doing that?" Like a lot of his other work does, you know? Though I will say that he leaves the uprights and acoustics mostly at home for this outing. This is an electric thumper, and given what this album is going for, that's only fitting, but we'll get to that in a sec. Lennon is doing a pretty decent job too, providing backup with guitar, mellotron, auto harp, and something called a cosmic rain drum, which sounds so much more badass than it actually is. Really though, his major problem on the album is the same problem that Larry Lalonde always had in Primus. When you're playing next to Les Claypool, it's a little easy to get overshadowed, you know? Though Lennon does a better job than Lalonde at holding his own, due to A, the style of album that this is, and B, well, the fact that his voice sounds a lot like Dear Old Dad's doesn't do anything to hurt the guy. Honestly, this album was super impressive in its own right, but remember that part a few minutes ago where I said that I had issues with both of Akraloth's requests? Well, my problem with this album is that it's kinda not my thing. Well, the thing is, the album is a psychedelic trip. It's rooted in a lot of 60s and 70s sort of trippy rock. It's got the tinges of a super early prog record, and I mean super early. Like early Floyd, early Yes, Soft Machine, King Crimson kind of prog. And while I do have a lot of respect for this kind of style, it's not something I often go out of my way to experience, you know? I mean, I gotta be in the right mood to take on this kind of music, and I could never really find myself in the right kind of vibe to get down with it. I mean, while listening to it, I couldn't help but think that I am way too sober to be hearing this right now. Not that you have to be blitzkrieg bopped to enjoy this kind of record, but I'm 99% positive it'll help. Overall, this particular kind of psychedelic prog is a bit like a lady friend whom I deeply respect and like quite a good deal, but I don't really want to full-blown bang. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, for as much as I like her, I'm not into her that way. It's just my personal taste. But I will do her one solid and introduce her and talk her up to a bunch of my friends in hopes that they'll like her, because I'm 100% positive somebody else will. If you're into her, take her home. Trust me, she'll show you a good time. I'll vouch for her. She's good people. Monolith of Phobos gets 4 wingmen out of 5. This album comes requested via Graham Christensen, another longtime supporter of the show and previous Patreon supporter, though this request again is one that I was getting from a lot of people. Dinosaur Jr. has a very devoted fan base, and they love the hell out of this band. Just ask Henry Rollins, dude, he'll be happy to tell you. And you know, they aren't wrong. These guys are alt-rock pioneers. They were blazing the trail for grunge and indie rock right alongside acts like REM, Sonic Youth, and the Pixies. They were integral in helping create the sound of indie we know and love today. Their sound is foundational to so many genres that have gotten so big over the years, and on this album they continue that proud musical heritage that makes them so memorable. Jay Mascis' guitars are heavy and thick, while also staying very pleasantly melodious. He does a great job creating soothing hooks and choruses to help ease the song's melody onto you, and Lou Barlow and Murph do a great job laying down a nice groovy foundation for him to work on. And I've always dug Jay's laid back, kind of chilled out method of vocals. It makes songs like Tiny, Be Apart, and Good to Know feel pleasing and welcoming, you know? For a band with this much fuzz, you kind of don't expect that, but it works. It makes me feel like these guys are happy to have me here listening to them, and in return, I'm damn happy to be there myself. I always do enjoy a good Dinosaur Jr. album, but Dinosaur Jr. is a band that suffers from an ailment. something I've covered many times on many other videos. It's called, you guessed it, The Problem. Yeah, I hate to say that, but as much as I absolutely dig the new Dinosaur Jr. album, I can't really lie to you people, it's just kinda another Dinosaur Jr. album. If you dig them, you'll dig this. If not, I don't think it'll change your mind. Simple as that, but holy fuck, when it comes to Dinosaur Jr., I have way more forgiveness for them than I do with some other bands with this problem. I mean, for as much as I harp on about the problem, I'm also the guy that says there isn't anything wrong with having one particular trick that you're really, really good at pulling off. And you know, Dinosaur Jr., I'd say fits into that category. I mean, yeah, this album could be called homogeneous, but god damn it, Dinosaur Jr. knows what works for them. They know what their audience wants, and god damn it, do they always deliver on that. This is not a band that should be absent from your lexicon. If you aren't familiar with these guys, yeah, I say give this a shot. It might not be your thing, but if it is, you're going to have a fucking blast of a time working your way through that back catalog. And seriously, catch that live show, even if you're not 100% hot on them. Like, they're one of the best live bands ever. Seriously, you have to catch that show. Give a glimpse of what you're not gets 4 Henry Rollins fangirlings out of 5. You know, fun fact, Graham is also one of my patrons that's getting a double on this particular episode, as he requested the next album too. Well, his second choice for a review? The fuck even is this shit? Oh my god. Oh fuck, I dropped my mic. This request comes via Zach Hankins, Jimmy Eat World. I dig him. I would by no means say I'm a super fan, but I'm a decent enough fan of stuff like Bleed American and Futures. Hell, stuff like Work, Sweetness, and Pain are my absolute jam. This band has created some very, very good stuff over the years. Oh, and don't get me started on Hear You Me, or as I like to call it, May Angels Lead You In. Jimmy has released some damn killer songs over the years. There's absolutely no denying that. But if I can be totally honest, I'm still kind of a fair weather fan when it comes to these guys. I mean, I haven't paid any attention to the stuff post Chase This Light, and while I know some of you really dig on stuff like Clarity and Static Prevails, I just can't get into it. I don't know, I look forward to reading your 7,000 word diatribes on why I'm the wrongest wrong person who ever wronged a wrong. This Jimmy album though, right out of the gate has one big thing that sets it apart from the rest of their catalog. Well, okay, from the rest of their catalog that I've heard at least, and that thing is atmosphere. This album has some absolutely gorgeous and smooth melodies and harmonies, lots of clean, vibrant guitar work and steady, fluid drumming, lots of reverb and echo laid across the tracks to give the songs a much more relaxed and soothing kind of vibe. Songs like Sure and Certain and It Matters really give off a peaceful kind of air, and they lull you into a sense of safety and security. Almost a false sense of security, as it turns out, as the album slowly sort of shifts its mood from mellow to morose about halfway through. Without too much of a warning, it does kind of sneak up on you with Pass the Baby. Holy shit, Pass the Baby. I'm still not completely certain what this song is about. It could be about war atrocities, or it could be about the band's producer, based on the wildly varying interpretations I've dug up on it. But look, either way, it paints a dark, unsettling picture, and it shows us a more sort of bleak side of Jimmy that I wasn't sure they were capable of pulling off, but I'll be damned if it isn't effective. Stuff like The End Is Beautiful, the horn and organ heavy title track, and the grandiose closer Paul Roger really show us more of a stricken and melancholy side to this band that I'm not even sure we've seen them do before, at least not to this extent and certainly not this effectively. I mean, I gotta admit, I dug the hell out of this album, even though it's not at all what I was expecting to hear. If you're the kind of person that's just stuck on sweetness in the middle, this slow, subtle romp through sadness and personal turmoil might be somewhat of a turnoff for you. But if you're open-minded to hearing Jimmy step in a new direction, you really should check this out. It's probably one of the most interesting albums I've heard from this band in a good long while. And frankly, I kinda hope they settle into this new groove. I think it really looks well on them. Integrity Blues passes 4 babies on to 5 babies. This request, as well as the next one, comes from Jacobo Gamboa? Oh dude, I hope I at least came close. And he requested TTNG, a band previously known as This Town Needs Guns. Honestly, for a kick-ass, heavy-ass, brutal-ass rock and roll band, that name would be fucking brilliant, but after hearing the kind of music this group makes, I kind of understand why they went with the name change. This stuff is way too mellow for this band to have guns in their name, unless those guns are super soakers full of spring water and
a little touch of rosemary.
That's not to say I didn't enjoy Disappointment Island, quite the contrary, I really liked it, which actually kind of sucks given the album's name. If it were garbage, I could have made a clever quip like Disappointment Island, boy I'll say, waka waka jibber jibber, nyuk 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 nyuk. No, this thing is pretty good, and I understand precisely why Mr. Gamboa here thought I would enjoy it, because I ranted on and on about these guys. You know, I've been getting a ton of good suggestions based on my newly found love for Fall of Troy's complicated riff work and song structure, stuff like Dance Gavin Dance, a lot like Birds, Lower Definition, etc., and now I can add these guys to that mix too, though what they've got going on is a lot more smooth jazz. Tim Collis is absolutely killing it with his lead work here. He's throwing around complicated licks, riffs, and solo work the same way that a garden sprinkler throws around water. It's kind of nutty how crazy some of his guitar work gets on this piece, while still maintaining an overall mellowed and relaxed sense of tone and melody. I don't think a single distortion pedal is used on this thing, but his riffs feel vibrant and insanely energetic. It goes to show you just how far you can get when you're just really good at playing your instrument. This album was so cathartic, so chilled the fuck out, that I almost couldn't help but feel like it was a touch too mellow in places, you know? I mean, even though the instrumentation is complex and intricate, it kinda doesn't even feel like a rock album. Hell, this thing feels almost out of my jurisdiction. I made a smooth jazz comparison earlier, and I feel like there's a definite case to be made for that. I guess this music's sort of like jazz if it were wearing jeans and an indie rock t-shirt. And while I can certainly get behind that, this album isn't something I'd listen to every single day. Again, this is mood music. I gotta be in a nice, specific, mellow frame of mind to get the most out of music like this. And while I certainly dug it and would recommend giving it a shot, oh absolutely, this probably isn't gonna be everyone's jam. But hey, if you've had a long day and you just want to mellow the fuck out with a glass of wine, a cigarette, and some fucking excellent distortion-free guitar work, you could certainly do much worse. Disappointment Island gets 4 ahs out of 5. Hey, remember like 2 minutes ago when I said I was getting lots of suggestions based on my love for Fall of Troy? Well, this band is one more act we can add to that particular list, though these guys appear to be on a much smaller scale than a lot of those others. With just over 600 monthly listeners on Spotify, just under 4,000 likes on Facebook, these guys are still flying pretty low under the radar, but dude, I'm glad you requested them, Jacobo, because they shouldn't be. On their Facebook page, they've listed their sound as math punk, and you know, the more I think about it, the more I like that description for bands like this. Super complicated, but still ear-catching and radio-friendly. Stuff like this, yeah, it so deserves to be playing on the radio. God, if only shitheads would stop insisting to hear Nickelback and Daughtry every 5 minutes. What can I say? Math is a scary subject. But yeah, this is another group whose rich and gorgeously detailed guitar work is the backbone holding up the beautifully sculpted chest of this band's sound. This album is actually really damn short. Just around 25 minutes, but I can completely understand why, as playing licks this crazy and intricate all throughout their songs have got to leave their fingers tired as fuck. Make no mistake, people, these guys give acts like Fall of Troy and Dance Gavin Dance a run for their money. Hell, if any of you bands are actually listening and are looking for an opener on your next big tours, I found your Huckleberry. This band in particular really hit a nail on the head for me in that their sound is, well, a teensy bit nostalgic. They've got an old school emo feeling, and I mean old school, like before any of you damn kids were born. Grumble, grumble, those damn millennials, grumble, grumble. The band I could not help but think about when listening to these guys was Sunny Day Real Estate. And guys, I love me some Sunny Day Real Estate. This thing sounds like Diary if it did a line of cocaine. I mean, apart from the album being a bit on the short side, I really have little to gripe about here. I say keep your eyes on these guys and jump aboard now, because there's a damn good chance we'll be hearing bigger, better things from them in the future. If you like your emo and you like your emo super old school and you like your emo super well played and crazy well performed, yeah, guys, the name of the band is Arrows in Her. Remember it. It Tired Me All the Same gets 4.5 Jeremy Enix out of 5. This request comes to us via Ujaneano? Oh, dude, again, I'm so sorry if I just Murka'd the fuck out of your name there. But this is another one I got like a shit zillion requests for from other people too, so I'm glad we finally got around to talking about it. Apparently, this thing is pretty hot shit too. People are gushing and going gaga over it, and in many ways, I agree. This thing's pretty tight. The sound is indie with a capital I-N-D-I-E. Which, by the way, people, let me drop some knowledge on you. This spelling is in regards to the music. This spelling is in regards to the city. Trust me, there is a difference, and yes, if you're an indie band from Indianapolis, it gets kind of complicated. But this is indie. This is indie.
Clear? Now give me 5.
The super lo-fi aesthetics and absolute bare-bones production tinkering on this makes for an extremely dirty, rough around the edges kind of feel. I mean, this is kind of what the Strokes, or maybe even the White Stripes, would have probably ended up sounding like if they'd never left the garage. You know, there's a weird scale that I sometimes like to use when referring to rock bands. I call it the strong sliding scale of rock dynamics, and it ranges from strong sad sounding music on the far left.
Why, thank you, Senator.
Quit calling me that. Strong mad sounding music on the far right, and right in the comfortable middle, well, you guessed it. As you can probably tell, a lot of indie, goth, and emo sits on the left, a lot of metal, industrial, and the heavier kinds of punk sit on the right, and in the middle, Foo Fighters. The scale doesn't apply to absolutely everything, but for Car Seat Headrest, this band sits comfortably in the strong sad camp. Hell, this stuff is so strong sad, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Will Toledo poster hanging in his wall in the next Homestar Runner cartoon. This thing is so indie in 20 to 30 years, the millennial successor to Wes Anderson will use these songs in his quirky coming-of-age comedies and will fucking love him for it. And I know indie is a super vague and not incredibly helpful term in describing a band's sound, but if you know anything of the indie aesthetic, then this is a band that simply embodies it. It's unpolished, it's fuzzy, its lyrics are quirky, and a lot of them sound like they're probably just first drafts. I mean, a song that's literally called Joe Gets Kicked Out of School for Using Drugs with Friends, but says this isn't a problem, is something that didn't get a lot of going over, you know? And while I really enjoy it and would absolutely recommend it to anyone who fancies themselves a lo-fi junkie, I can also understand if this thing kinda makes your blood boil. Look, some people will give this thing one listen and think it's one of the most pretentious pretentious things since the Morrissey, Bono, and Jack White Human Centipede, and at 70 shit-chugging minutes, there's certainly way too much of it. But I don't feel like it's pretentious. I mean, Toledo's indie cred is certainly well earned. This is a band that started out as a solo project with monthly albums recorded out of his car. Yes, monthly. Prolific motherfucker, wasn't he? God, I shit my pants back when Weezer was doing the yearly thing. Christ. The sound speaks to a do-it-yourself, lean and mean, no BS kind of approach to the genre. And it all has this fuck it, let's just do what we want kind of mentality that does feel quite liberating. It's definitely the kind of music we only get from groups that are helmed by an auteur, someone whose earnestness and knowledge of a good hook comes across as frightfully refreshing. And in a music industry that's just chock full of cynicism, I'm happy to see some genuine earnestness and some artists out there who are just keeping it real. Even if real is kind of fucking goofy. I mean, look at this year. Real has gotten officially fucking bananas, am I right? Teens of Denial gets 4 characters from Rushmore out of 5.
If this tour doesn't kill you, then
This request comes from Peter. Just Peter. Thanks, Peter. And it looks like Peter got me a puppy! Oh my god, look at it! Oh, look at the cute little pupper! Oh, isn't he a sweetie? Isn't he a little sweetie, cute little puppy? Oh, good little doggy doggy! Oh. I'm just fucking with you. What he actually requested was Pup, a Canadian punk band that has really been causing some stir lately, haven't they? Hell, their homeland has already embraced them with open arms, and it looks like they're slowly but surely finding their way across the border. Guys, seriously, come on over. We could totally use the encouragement right now. Hell, you might even pass a few of us on the way over. You know, something that's very odd, but also weirdly satisfying about this job is, well, how much you guys are getting to know my taste specifically. This was another one I got a ton of requests for, specifically with the bent that, Crash, you would love this. Being a loudmouth asshole, my first response to that statement is always, you ain't know me, brah! But more often than not, the suggestions I get are just so goddamn scrumptious. My audience clearly has better taste in music than I do, and I'm a fortunate man for it. These guys in particular really wowed me. They have that sort of new modern punk feel that bands like the Menzingers, the Hotelier, and Jeff Rosenstock all have going for them. It's that lo-fi, thoughtful, earnest almost to a point of goofy childness at times sort of vibe, but these guys in particular have something that a lot of those other acts don't necessarily have, or at least have in nearly as much supply as those others do. Aggression. This music is fast, loud, and crunchy. Stuff like DVP, Old Wounds, and My Life Is Over and I Couldn't Be Happier absolutely throttle the volume and speed up to 11. And Stephen Babcock is just shrieking and shouting his way through some of these tracks in a gloriously rip-roaring and frenzied fashion. This definitely feels like a best of both worlds kind of band. A band that can fly off the handle to please the old school punks, but can still create that pleasant riffage and snide, cynical songcrafting to please the modern scene. I haven't seen too many other bands that are pulling this sound off this well. Pears, maybe? PQ comes to mind. Man, why do all these bands start with P? That's weird, isn't it? So, if you're that guy who's always wanted to check out those modern punk bands I keep ranting and raving about, but just feel like it lacks the energy and bravado for your tastes, totally give this a try. It's spellbinding. Even if you are more of a cat person, this puppy is just so goddamn cute. The Dream Is Over gets 4.5 puppies out of 5. Oh god, look at this little pupper, he's such a sweetie. Well, here we are, number 11. This request comes via TVB Crap, a name you might remember for requesting Hell Yeah in the previous Patreon-related video. Turns out that was a joke request, and so was this one. Look, I mean, I don't necessarily mind reviewing garbage albums, especially from a Patreon perspective. I mean, it's your money, you spend it how you want to, Chief, but This band, really? Come on, dude, that's just mean. Look, I'll bet a lot of you, upon seeing that Drowning Pool was gonna be in this episode, probably muttered to yourself, wait, Drowning Pool? They're still around? Really? Yep. Apparently they never even left, even though pretty much everyone stopped paying attention to them after the warranties on their Jankos expired. It baffles me that this band is still a thing. The only member that had any talent, personality, or even mild likability was the original singer, Dave Williams, and he tragically died all the way back in 2002. 14 years this band has had to try and recover the slack, and they've spent the better part of it shoving their heads up their asses. Like, this is the absolute worst kind of album I hate to review. I mean, sure, it's bad. You knew that before a word came out of my mouth, probably. It's a new metal act that's still making the exact same sounding goddamn bullshit music in 2016. They haven't adapted or changed things up. It's the same shit we were listening to 10 years ago. Jesus Christ. It leaves me with nothing to talk about. Have you heard any other ho-hum, generic feeling, whatever sounding new metal album in your life? Well, that's this album. This thing is just... that. It's a big empty space where some noise should be, but it just isn't. It's a blank. It's a shell. If you sat in complete empty silence for 49 minutes, you would have no greater or worse experience than listening to this album. Well, okay, I guess there is one factor that did get under my skin. I don't know who the hell is writing the lyrics these days, but whoever they are can get fucked with an Oldsmobile. Most of it's just forgettable. Hey bro, you wanna fight? Or hey bro, you wanna party? Or hey bro, you like the mosh pit? God, Dave, we miss you so much, dude. But when this album sucks, it can remove the polish from a damn doorknob. Meet the bullet. Holy fuck, this song starts with a chorus of small children literally singing, "If you're crazy and you know it, shoot yourself." Speaking as a survivor of a gun-related suicide attempt, whoever wrote that line can cordially go get fucked. Then there's Push, a song so wretched no one has even bothered to post the lyrics online. Huh. I'm serious, I looked too. But I mean, not that I blame them. I mean, lyrics like, "They say that life's a bitch, well I gotta bone her. I told her, bend over and I'll fuck the world." Jesus Christ, I've heard parody songs with more insightful lyrics. Local daytime radio parodies. It's an album that's only vaguely noticeable when it's trying and failing to be the edgiest of edgelords, edge bro, woohoo! Guys, Drowning Pool didn't used to be this bad. Seriously, dig up Sinner sometime. It's a damn good album and it holds its own even after all these years, but man, Dave, buddy, I'm just glad you're not around to see this, man. Holy shit. Hellelujah gets 1.5 green teams.
Make love to Mother Earth.
Out of 5. Aaron Akesian. Dude, thank you so much, Aaron, for requesting this album. I really had no idea what I was in for when I dug it up. I wasn't familiar with Haken. And before you give me shit, yes, that's how it's pronounced, but I saw progressive metal in the Wikipedia page and figured, well, as long as it doesn't make my ears bleed, we should be doing pretty much alright. But whoa, man, I was not expecting this. And I say I wasn't expecting this primarily because I haven't heard this since 1987. Like, almost literally. I suppose this album might have been a throwback due to the whole Atari 2600 design of the cover, but the music inside, to put it succinctly, it's Rush. Particularly, it's that Rush era from the mid to late 80s, stuff like Power Windows, Grace Under Pressure, etc. This stuff just reeks of ultra bright new wave synths and heady sci-fi atmospheres and lyrical concepts, tight as all get-out electronic drums and unusual percussion, and oh my god, it's so goddamn scrumptious and sweet, I swear it's giving me diabetes just talking about it. But Crash, I hear you say, isn't 80s synth Rush the worst kind of Rush? To which I reply with, Signals is bae, Power Windows is choice, Grace Under Pressure is a fucking masterpiece, and Hold Your Fire is way better than people say it is. Deal with it. But, let me back up a little bit, sorry there. While New Wave era Rush is pretty hotly contested, there are some legitimate gripes to be had with it, if I'm being completely objective. The band was streamlining their sound a little too much during those days, and they were adding stuff that they felt would appeal to a then modern audience. I get why that ruffled some feathers, because it meant they leaped away from their proggier roots in order to move in that more streamlined direction. But this album? This sounds like that synthier, more electronic Rush sound without skimping on the progressive rock influences. Songs are long, complex, and gorgeously arranged with tons of tempo shifts, intriguing guitar and bass work, and some synths that are so juicy, rich, and bright they're almost fucking citrus. These guys are straight up vitamin C, I mean that. Just listen to songs like 1985 and Earthrise and tell me it doesn't knock your socks off with how elegantly it combines poppy, ear-catching hooks and big, dumb, colorful guitar licks with technically gorgeous, rich, and detailed guitar work and drumming. It's all the old-school rock geek musicality of classic Rush mixed nearly flawlessly with the regular old geek melody and pop catchiness of their later work. It's the best of both worlds, and it sounds amazing. And okay, guys, forgive me, I don't mean to hammer the Rush comparisons so heavily into your heads. This band isn't Rush. Please don't mistake them for Rush. I mean, they're doing their own thing here, and it's not like a one-to-one Rush copy sort of thing. I mean, the singer isn't nearly as squeaky as old Geddes, so that's bonus points for them right off the bat. But man, like, I bring up Rush so heavily because while listening to this, they were the band that just constantly kept popping up in my head. And when your group does a lot to remind me of my all-time favorite rock group ever, yeah, that's gonna get you a good write-up. It's certainly a throwback to an 80s style sound, and I guess depending on your taste for 80s music, this may or may not appeal to you, fair enough. But to those of you who do enjoy this kind of thing, it's the best kind of throwback. It's a Kung Fury kind of throwback, not a Gem and the Holograms kind of thing. It's beautifully written, performed, and executed, and even if it feels a touch cheesy at times, I couldn't help but have an absolute blast with it. Put this thing on, boot up your copy of Far Cry Blood Dragon, grab a can of Pepsi Throwback, and have yourself a goddamn good time. Reaganomics. Affinity gets 5 NES classics out of 5.